Howdy, my name is Nonat, and I would like to apologize for the rest of this video because I am still getting over a sickness, so if I have any stuffiness or fluffiness, that's why. I also look like I haven't slept in 3 days, because it's been hard to sleep. But I'm not here to talk about my sick self. I'm here to talk to you about a very special project that our friends Eldritch Osiris Games are working on right now, whose Kickstarter has 5 days left, and that is MECHfinder. If you remember, they sponsored a video a few weeks back, and now I'm doing a full-on video dedicated to going over their mech building system. So if you've been interested at all to see exactly how the mech building works as part of MECHfinder, I'm going to go over most of the different choices you make when building your mech. I'm not going to go into full detail on all of them because honestly, there's a ton here. If you're just looking for sheer amount of content, this book has got you covered. And if you like what you see, click my link in the description and go check out the MECHfinder Kickstarter. They're in their last 5 days, and it'd be awesome to see them bump over that $10,000 mark. So what goes into building a mech in MECHfinder? Well, at its core, it's really simple. You have X number of mech points to spend on a variety of different things, and you spend as many points as you can to get those things. Everything costs points, you spend points. It's like money. The only stipulation is that you must own at least one option from every single category, things like size, mobility, among others. So you'll have some choices to make. Do you spend the average amount on each different category to get your most bang for your buck in every category, or do you sacrifice some categories to make others stronger? Additionally, every 4 character levels, you get 6 additional mech points, and you can spend 1 day of downtime to swap out your mech parts for different ones. At level 1, you have 14 mech points, and you must pick one option from all 5 categories: size, mobility, limbs, processor, and hull. Hilariously, you can actually make a mech using 0 mech points if you just take all of the most basic average options like light hull, basic limbs, basic mobility, medium sized. I think that's kind of funny that you can just spend 0 mech points on your mech because mech points are able to be spent at a later point, but we'll get to that. So what do each of these categories do? Well, size is self-explanatory. It decides the size of your mech, everything from tiny to gargantuan. I really like that tiny actually costs more than medium, but gargantuan costs so many mech points because it's, you're freaking massive. But don't write off size just yet because that also determines your movement speed, so size does matter in this case. Mobility basically describes how your mech gets around, with basic mobility being it walks on 2 legs, but basic flight meaning it has some minor jet boosters. And this one's interesting because as you level up at levels 9 and 17, you can actually spend even more mech points into it to get both a temporary flight and then a full-on flight at level 17. The only hard part here is it sounds incredibly expensive. It's 2 mech points originally, but then at level 9, it's an additional 10, which would be 12. And then at 17th level, I think it would cost you 30 mech points, because it's an extra 18 mech points on top of the 12. So for 30 mech points out of, what's your total max mech points? I think you only get 38 mech points. So maybe don't take flight. They've taken some cool inspiration from things that already exist in Pathfinder 2e with things like the hover mobility, which is similar to the ghost archetype, where you can quote-unquote fly, but no more than a few inches off of the ground, and you are still subject to falling towards the ground if it goes out from under you. Some of the options are clearly designed for like unarmed mechs, which is an actual thing, because the animalistic mobility option actually gives you plus 10 feet to your move speed, but only if all of your hands are free. So if you're playing something like a monk mech without using a weapon, that could work. And yes, mechs do get classes. We'll get to that. There are some options that can only be taken at certain levels, such as basic climbing and digging, which requires character level 5 before you can take it, but it does give you a burrowing or climb speed. The limb options are pretty cool. Your basic limbs just gives you 2 arms, but you've got cool options like the natural weapon limbs, which gives you claws and whatnot. You've got weaponized limbs, which make your limbs into actual functioning weaponry, and you've got really cool options like the manipulator limbs, which is a whole second set of arms that can only be used to interact with simple objects. They can't be used to wield weaponry or anything, but they can still be used to interact with the world around you even while your normal limbs are holding a weapon or something. It's super cool. Your hull selection is what decides how many hit points your mech has. However, there are options that do something beyond just giving you more hit points. So things like light, medium, heavy hulls, all of those give you a couple more hit points, though I do have to say I don't know if it's worth spending mech mech points on this. You know, what would you rather have? 2 additional hit points or an increased movement speed? I feel like 9 times out of 10, people would rather take better mobility than a couple of extra hit points, especially looking at something like Superior Hull. It requires level 9, but it costs 10 mech points to get 14 hit points. And it doesn't say this is per level. I feel like I'd rather just take the 6 hit point Light Hull and save the 10 mech points, because it's only a difference of 8 hit points, right? It's possible these are supposed to be per level, but it does not say that, so... The built-in plating is pretty cool, but it sounds like mechs can wear armor anyway, so unless you're playing something like a wizard mech, built-in plating would be a little bit redundant. And the rapid repairing hull sounds super cool, very flavorful, if it didn't cost 14 mech points. You know, I think I did the math that you only get like 38 mech points in the entire game, and that's at level 20. So spending 14 of those just on the ability to heal yourself a little bit, I don't know how worth it that is, but it's for you to decide. And the processor is the most unique option available to mechs. They give a variety of different bonuses, not necessarily in line with any consistency between them, just various different bonuses you can give your mech, such as innate cantrips, weapon proficiencies, low light vision, things like that. You can gain the assurance skill feat, you can gain fast recovery and die hard. Probably the most unique, but honestly undercosted, is Scanner Processor. For one action, you give yourself all-around vision and immunity to flanking? That's insane for a level 1 ability that costs 2 mech points. You just have an ability that turns off flanking for your enemies against you? That's insane! For the more expensive options, you can get things like motion sense out to 30 feet, you can get a +2 bonus to perception for initiative rolls, and for a whopping 14 mech points, you can tell when an undetected creature is next to you, and targeting a hidden creature only has a DC of 5. So now, beyond all of the different categories of parts, you also have systems, which are basically feats for your mech. There is basic, advanced, greater, major, and ultimate systems being available at different levels. I'm not going to be going over all of these because that would be like doing a whole deep dive into a class, but I will go over some of my favorites from each section. Additionally, you can only have 2 systems, so basically you can only have 2 feats. They do still cost mech points, and every 4 character levels, you can add 1 extra system. Right at level 1, you've got some cool options, like the group tactics, allowing you to give a +2 circumstance bonus to aid your allies, and they get +2 to aid you. You've got things like a drone familiar, which I think is just super thematic. You've got reactive teamwork, letting you step if an ally ends their turn next to you. Reinforced defenses is a cool one. It's sort of like a worse raised shield, but for one action, you just get +1 to armor class, even if you don't have a shield. That's great for those 2-weapon fighting mechs. The level 5 advanced systems were actually a little disappointing to me. They all felt pretty niche, and most of them required some kind of prerequisite, things like Tailspin, which is cool because it allows you to trip 2 targets at once using the same bonus, but it only works if your mech has a tail. I guess Sickening Vents is pretty cool, but I feel like the fact that it costs 6 mech points for a reaction you can only use once per day, that enemies could still make their save against, just doesn't feel that great. Level 9 greater systems give some really cool benefits, but now we're encroaching on that too expensive territory. You know, remember, we're talking about out of 38 possible mech points total, these are costing 10. But you can get things like casting an upgraded heroism that can grant more temporary hit points than usual. You can step twice for no reactions. You can get greater dark vision for a minute. That's pretty great. They're really good abilities, but again, that 10 mech point buy-in cost is really brutal. And the 13th level major systems seem to suffer from the same issue. Why would you spend 14 mech points to be able to cast Enlarge once per day, when you could just spend 12 mech points to make your thing huge permanently? Hell, even the 20 mech points for permanent Gargantuan at level 17 is probably a better use than the 14 for a once per day Enlarge. I think Enlarge only lasts either like a minute or 10 minutes, versus this is permanent. I guess Enlarge gives a damage bonus, but that just doesn't seem that worth it. Avenge Ally is cool, I suppose. For 14 mech points, once per 10 minutes, if you're next to a dying ally, you can make an attack roll with advantage. This is once per encounter, but I suppose if you combine this with something like a power attack or other really big damaging risky ability, this could work. Well, no, you can't even combine it with power attack because this is its own strike. It's not a passive thing. Yeah, it's just a fortune attack roll once per encounter, basically, only if your ally is dying. And yeah, these 17th level ultimate systems really struggle from that MP cost. 18 out of 38 mech points just to be able to stride with no reactions if a creature misses you. That's a good ability. Is it 18 mech points good? Is it worth giving up gargantuan size? Is it worth giving up extra limbs? Is it worth giving up even extra hit points compared to this? I'm not sure these ultimate systems are really that worth it. True Seeing is good. It's once per hour, which is really, really useful. But I feel like if this is a 17th level ability and it costs almost half of your entire lifetime's mech points, why not just make it permanent? You know, why not have your mech have permanent true sight? You know, that would be a 17th level hyper expensive option. I think the problem that I see here is that it's going with a scaling mech point cost based on the type of system, whereas the different abilities in each system are not necessarily all balanced together to be worth the same number of mech points, if that makes sense. But that's just my opinion. I'm curious to hear what y'all think in the comments. So those are all the systems and parts that go to making a mech, but there is one more piece that I haven't covered yet, and that is your class. Now, MECHfinder plays in an interesting way. You've built your mech using all your different mech points and spending them on various options, but your mech still has a class. Your mech is still a playable character. The best way I can describe it, if I'm understanding this correctly, is that you're basically playing a Pathfinder 2e character with all of these different mech parts added on. You are building your own quote-unquote ancestry into a mech, as it were, and then adding a bunch of different little bonuses. But you're still getting your class features, your class proficiencies, your class feats, everything like that. So if you wanted to play like a monk mech, you could take that animalistic mobility, which is a super cool idea to get you that movement speed. So this is designed to make sort of a hyper customizable character played in a larger than life mech type setting. So let me know what you guys think. Are you excited for MECHfinder? Do you want to play around with all these different ideas of picking and choosing each individual part to make your own perfect mech? If so, click my link in the description and go check out MECHfinder on Kickstarter. I'd love to see them pass 10,000, double their initial goal. It would be great. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.